Live from Modi'in, Israel, it is Frosty the Snowman, otherwise known as Hanok Young. Hanok, is it, you're telling me it's a little on the chilly side there?
Well, it's really kind of funny. Compared to dear friends in Kentucky and in the nation of Texas,
Yeah.
this is no big deal. But, well, let me put it to you this way. On Tuesday, today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Sunday and Monday, it was approximately 73 degrees Fahrenheit, which is incredibly unseasonably warm, but incredibly delightful.
Yeah.
So we've got winter storms. The rain came down like cats and dogs throughout the night. The temperatures dropped 30 degrees. So it's approximately 46 here in Modi'in. 46 degrees anywhere else in the world is no big deal. But I was at the local health food store earlier today, and I walk in and I'm wearing my full-length Australian duster coat, with a hood, with my mask, with everything. And the guy is, he's laughing. He said, that is a really serious coat. And he said his phone has been ringing nonstop with people asking if they're doing deliveries because they can't go out in this kind of weather. Now, these are people who are driving to the mall and can't. I mean, I don't have a tricycle to drive. So, I mean, it's really funny that Israelis are losing their minds for 40 degrees, damp, chilly weather when our friends in America are trying to figure out how to get their power lines defrosted.
Yeah, it's been really bad here. I know friends that are in that area and are really struggling. I see that there is going to be snow in Jerusalem. I saw that up on the Golan Heights, they had a bulldozer out plowing the 3/4 of an inch of snow off of the road. Yeah.
We're used to camels and donkeys. What do you expect from us?
Well,
really?
One of my greatest memories of Israel is being over there with Hayavel at the pruning in 2012. And we were up at Saigot and it snowed. And I mean, we're talking about it snowed, 4 or 5 inches. And
wow.
We were trying to, of course, with Hayavel, it's worse than the post office. Nothing stops the work that you're doing. So we're trying to get out into the vineyards. We're having those little jumpies, those, 9-passenger vans that Hayavel put 43 people into. We're pushing them up the road, trying to get over the top. And there was some Jewish children there on the side of the road. Well, we stopped and had a little snowball fight with them. So it was really amazing.
That's so great. That is so great. It's what's funny is, if indeed it does snow in Jerusalem, the head of the Jerusalem chapter of the Mike Clayton fan club, which is my daughter Ayala, has already promised to take pictures, as she said, for your peeps. So I guess she's referring to our constituents.
All right.
So we'll pictures of that. But the big news here in Israel is, as of Sunday, we are beginning to open up. Now, typical of the hokey pokey approach to the way we do everything in Israel, they're already talking about a lockdown for Purim, which is at the end of the month, and possibly one for Pesach, Passover. But you know what? With elections coming up, nobody wants to give bad news.
Yeah.
So, kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
But I think you've got something interesting to bring up for us to discuss today.
Yeah.
So why don't we just up to it?
Yeah, let me give a commercial message first. Is that anybody that's in the Greenville area, check my Facebook page. I'll be working with Excess Road Band this weekend. I'll actually be in Greer, South Carolina. And if anyone is in the Columbia, South Carolina area and would like to have a Purim party that is a little bit more spiritual than some Purim parties that I know of, Barry Phillips will be over at Gates to Zion with our friends Craig and Jan Odell.
Fantastic.
So those are two things. Hanok, I've got two things this week, a letter and also a conversation with someone. One of them having to do with our program, one just in some of my teachings. And
Okay.
the comment was, I don't always agree with everything you say. And so the telephone conversation I had, it was a lot of fun. Great guy. And I said, well, that's a good thing, because if we ever come to the place of being in agreement of everything, one of us is not needed. And that gave a little chuckle, but the truth is there's a lot of truth in that.
Good
Um,
point.
so I want to go first of all to Amos chapter 3, verse 3, and something that I've taught on numerous times, but a word that I was taught by mutual friend Yudi Morotz at the Blue and White Art Gallery there in the Cardo in the Old City, that when it says, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? Yudi taught me, and I went back and looked at this, even though, he kind of grew up knowing Hebrew, so I don't think that Strong's is going to teach him anything. There's that's just a little dig there. Case is very subtle, but a slight dig.
Yeah.
And the word is best translated, how can two walk together unless they have the same destination? And so people ask, occasionally, how do you and Hanok walk these things out? What happens? I think we've come to the realization of that verse in our own relationship. So here's what I want to get your comments on. That a relationship is not always about coming to a place of agreement, but rather a continual learning process, so that both of the people that are involved in this relationship continue to grow toward a common destination. Could I get your words of wisdom on something like that?
Well, you can always get words. Whether there's wisdom hidden in there, is really in the eye of the beholder, perhaps. That's an incredibly profound way of looking at things. The world of Christianity, in all of its different forms and formats, has really given the impression that you need to be in agreement.
Yeah.
Churches, congregations have a specific listing of their creeds, and you are either fully in lockstep, or you've gotten, and I love this expression, the left foot of fellowship. Basically, the pastor drops back 10 yards and punts you as far as he can. See, we don't have anything like that in the Jewish community. You've got all kinds of beliefs, all wandering in the same synagogue, and no one really cares. So I'm fascinated with the way the other side of the family operates. However, it is not reality-based. The reality-based is when you have people who are interested in reaching the same destination, bringing the kingdom to earth, bringing the full restoration of Judah and Ephraim, restoring all of Israel the way it's supposed to be. Now, whether you're coming from north by northwest or south by southeast, as long as you're going in the same direction, That's what really counts, in my humble opinion.
Okay. Okay. So what we see in Christian circles, okay, I come from that background, of course, is that unity is talked about, but what it's really comes down to is uniformity. Um, that you
And
agree
and
to.
it's a big difference.
Yeah, yeah. You agree to a set of standards that's already been established, and if you do not come into agreement with those, you are. And I still have marks from that left foot. Um, you're told that, well, you're no longer welcome here. You're no longer needed here. Whatever the situation. And so it is all about uniformity. Now, you've been looking through the Besaret, and am I pronouncing that right?
Besorah is, yeah, it's what's interesting is I've never heard it pronounced by someone who speaks Hebrew as a first language.
Okay.
I do have a meeting next week with someone who actually could provide that insight, for me, because when I listen to people in Hebrew root circles pronounce Hebrew, it reminds me of learning Southern.
Yeah.
It's like people say, wow, you and Mike are really so much like, and I said, well, among the things that we have in common, which most people don't realize, is neither of us are native English speakers.
Yeah.
And I said, say what? I said, Mike speaks Southern, and I grew up in the Bronx where we spoke something similar to English, but not really.
Yeah.
And they kind of like, when people nod, but you see that vacant look of
Yeah.
like, I have no idea what they just said, but I think it's profound.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you have it.
It's been fun. I mean, this is a project that I've worked on with you and also with mutual friend Lenny Harris. Now, I have to tell you,
Yeah.
teaching you Southern has been much easier. I had to bring in other people into this. I had to bring in BB Stevens, Chris Sharp, various ones to try to help me tutor Lenny Harris. But you've been a little bit easier pupil with this, so we digress.
Yes. Yes.
The Gospels, we know how to say
Yeah.
that one, or in the
Okay.
South, the Gospels. So there's a verse in Yochanan, chapter 17, which is known as the high priestly prayer of Yeshua. And it says that they may be one. Now, this verse has been used in Christianity and denominational Christianity to say that somehow the 43,600 plus, is probably now over 60,000 denominations, are one day going to come back together as one, when the truth is they were never one to begin with, biblically.
No, certainly not.
Yeah, that's
No.
another subject. So when you read those words, okay, this is a softball for you. I threw you a little bit of a little stinger there earlier. This is a very much a softball. We could actually call it T-ball. When you read those words, who do you think that Yeshua was talking about?
Okay. It's very important to remember the context of Yeshua, his Talmidim, his students, his disciples, and the era.
Mm-hmm.
The Jewish world, which was their exclusive world, was very divided in their understanding of exactly how to live halakha, Jewish law, as they understood it. It is not a comparable situation for our friends in America. The only Jews in America that pay any attention to halakha are those within the Orthodox community.
Yeah.
Whether the other communities were...
Sorry about that, folks. We had a connection problem somewhere along the way. The dog sleds had to take a break. So you were talking about the Jews in America. You probably continued on from there. So go back to those words if you can.
Okay. So essentially, it's not similar to the situation of today, where in the American Jewish community, only the Orthodox Jews have any concern whatsoever about halakha. Anyone else, any other denomination, doesn't make a difference. In Yeshua's time, all of the Jews, except for the fully Roman collaborators, were concerned with halakha. What I believe he was saying was, and it ties in with what you said just a few minutes ago, there can be unity without uniformity.
Okay.
Our strength comes from our diversity rather than despite it. And I had a friend who used an expression years ago, not to major in minors. Now, I think that, this was a woman, Becky Button, actually in North Carolina, who taught me this. And I think it's important to remember that the concept of unity is important in the sense of a focus on the purpose. If you're talking about, for instance, the restoration of all of Israel, that is what your focus should be. Mm. And I can give you an example of a digression where just the other day, I got an email from a pal in the US who asked me if there was any, from a historical point of view, it appears for a number of years that some guy in Arkansas, of all places, had a video questioning whether chickens were kosher or were unclean, because in one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, it doesn't mention that their bones were found in the temple. So I had to send them a message, be right back, because I was rolling on the floor laughing. I mean, I was crying. To me, it was that funny. And what's interesting is that it appears the Hebrew roots world has discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. The rest of the world discovered them 75 years ago. But, it's this idea, we're going to find a source from about 2,200 years ago that casts a different view than those silly Jews have. And but it's the sense of, you mention all the time about rabbit trails and following, it really, like, everyone feels like they're in Alice in Wonderland, following, with some magic potion or something. Mm. I think the message of Yeshua was consistent.
Okay. So you're talking diversity. I love what you said there of in our diversity is our strength.
Absolutely.
And that is true, I think, in the wilderness. That is true with the 12 tribes in Israel, that it was their strength is the different, if everyone out there is, let's say that the whole world becomes carpenters tomorrow, that's going to kind of limit the things that we can do in the world. Because if you...
Yeah, when you have a problem with your plumbing, that's not going to help you at all.
Yeah, or if you
even
happen to, cut your finger off, what's the next person going to do? Take a hammer to it? In life, diversity, that's where the human race, we have a strength of doing things in this world because of who we are as I'm not trying to take us to the animal level, but my dog Kaya, who loves you dearly, of course, only has a few talents in her, in her little world there. She can catch a ball once in a while if she wants to. She eats and she goes and plays with other dogs and jumps up in my lap and, acts like a 50-pound lap dog. But, she doesn't have a lot of other tools outside of that. And that's true with any dog. But humans, we've been given these different things that we can do in life from our Creator, and so the diversity is our strength. Now, do you think that Yeshua was talking in any way, or even thinking about the northern kingdom there in this statement that the two shall be one? Was this a statement regarding the kingdoms?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because just last night I posted on Facebook, so now you know it's real, the quote from Yirmiyahu, from Jeremiah. I'm not a chapter and verse kind of guy. I think it's 31:8. Yeah, I had written 31:9, but it's 31:8. What it's talking about, returning, Ephraim return. Ephraim is my firstborn. And someone wrote me and said, why is Ephraim called the firstborn? I explained that, the kingdom of Israel and how much Hashem has loved his people, even though having to exile them. And we come back to Mati 15:24. Yeshua say, I've come but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This was a big issue. Now, of course, none of the Christian denominations want to talk about this. Of course, they don't want to talk about it because it involves a return to Torah. Now, if you can't go out for pulled pork after church on Sunday, maybe there's some of the other things y'all shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Hush my mouth.
I know.
Sure enough.
So even in that day, this was when he said, I've not come but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Yeah, you're right. Most Christian denominations don't want to deal with that, because then that makes our identity as part of Israel, which brings up all kinds of other problems.
Yeah, because if you're Israel along with the Jewish people, who wants these Jews for brothers and sisters?
Yeah, that's true.
This is something that mainstream Christianity is just not comfortable with.
Yeah, and neither is Judaism, looking for Christians normally to be brothers and sisters. That's why I have a hard time with the word. But your understanding of first century.
Okay, but
go ahead.
Remember, my surprise. We're all going to be surprised.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
That's true. What is your understanding of was first century Judaism even thinking about the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the northern kingdom coming back?
Yeah, and it's something that has haunted us throughout the ages. And much later throughout history, various Jewish communities sent emissaries. But there is an understanding, I don't know if you want to call it a legend or a series of stories, but at the time of the Bar Kokhba rebellion, which was the years 132 to 135, so it's approximately 100 years after Yeshua was killed by the Romans. 100 years later, it seems we have sources that indicate that Rabbi Akiva traveled throughout the areas of the diaspora of those communities outside of Israel, looking to re-engage where it was believed the descendants of the northern kingdom were living throughout the Mediterranean basin. So that issue of the return of the tribes of Israel has always been on our minds and has always been in our prayers. We're obsessed with it.
Okay, you just opened a hot topic here, and maybe we don't have time
Oops.
for this one today. We might have to come back to this again. Was this the motivating force of Rav Shaul?
Well, I have to tell you, I've spent a lot more time, energy, effort, and focus, and I'm able to relate fully 150% to Yeshua and what he taught. I don't stand and view the world according to Paul slash, as you say, Rav Shaul, quite as much.
Okay.
However, having said that, it appears in the same way that the other shlichim were interested in continuing and teaching the message of Yeshua to Jewish communities, it was Paul slash Shaul who were focused strictly on communities that were pagan, non-Jewish communities. Now, the non-Jewish world at the time was pagan.
Okay.
So I don't know. I haven't seen, and again, I haven't studied Paul a fraction of the way I've studied the teachings of Yeshua.
Okay.
So I can't say definitively, but I have yet to come across anything that leads me to say he was looking for the tribers.
Okay. But okay.
But it's a really interesting thought, Mike.
Well, this is where I'm going with this, is that one of the books that is attributed to him is the Book of Galatians. Okay,
I
so
didn't know what.
I was
Good to
just
be back.
I was just giving a little bit of a oh well, that's it. So let's go back to this once again. A connection. I'll try to scrub some of this out on the edit.
Sure.
Quickly, Paul Shaul went to Galatia, which is this the book of Galatians that we get. The word Galatians comes from Galut, which was actually part of Yosemite Sam, if you remember. You know, he used to call Bugs Bunny, "You crazy Galut." So, you know, things that Judaism has given us through the years. As I look at the book of Galatians, I see a person who is trying to get people that have lost their identity back to their true identity.
Now, if you take that as the premise for what he was teaching, it's something that has to kind of be teased out now
Mm-hmm.
because it was not in the interests of any of the churches. You know, there's a tendency to blame everything on the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
But the Protestant churches, the Reformation, et cetera, it was never in their interest to say, well, we're studying and living our lives. We've created an entire religious structure, you know, based on a religion about Yeshua, and we're ignoring the premise. I mean, they did a really good job of scrubbing the idea that he was Jewish in the land of Israel.
Yeah.
This is, you know, so it's a very interesting historical what if in terms of who created the doctrines that, you know, sort of not only canonized the books in the New Testament, but left out certain explanations one way or the other. Very fascinating.
Well, maybe this is something we'll continue on in weeks to come. You know, it's kind of no man's land right here that we're dealing with. I would go out on a limb and say I'd have an easier time talking to you about something like this than I would, let's say, of Marcion or Constantine. So, you know, maybe we can find some fruit here. Well, hey, stay warm.
Boy, thank you, Mike. You too.
And you know, if you
talk to you.
Are you going to get snow in Modine?
No, not a chance. But it's snowing right now in Jerusalem.
Okay.
Again, the Jerusalem president of the Mike Clayton fan club just sent a message. It flashed up on the screen. Snow in Jerusalem.
Well, tell my favorite head of the fan club in Jerusalem that I expect a picture of a Jerusalem snowman, or if she'd like a snow woman, or snow something. Just tell her to get out there, get her little battery operated socks on or battery operated gloves. Suck it up, cupcake,
Yep.
and get out there and make me a snowman.
Show enough.
All right, buddy. Take care. We'll talk to you next
Mike,
week.
take care. Regards. Shalom. Bye-bye.